Namaste. Good evening. Welcome to the evening session at ADW 2.0. Today we have a panel discussion of the topic Innovating for the Northeast. It is hosted for leading design and sustainability academicians from institutions in the Northeast of India. The panelists will participate in an open-ended discussion on challenges and needs of the people in the Northeast and how innovation is helping leapfrog over the challenges. The panelists today, we have Dr. Uday Kumar. He is the head of the Department of Design at IIT Guwahati. Dr. Sanjeev Kakoti, Associate Professor at IIM Shillong. Shri Vikram Mitra, Dean, NID Jorhat, Assam. And Shri Bhaskar Bhatt, Associate Professor, Anant University. Dr. D. Uday Kumar is famously the designer of the Indian rupee symbol. At present, he is working as Associate Professor and Head in the Department of Design, IIT Guwahati. He has completed his PhD in Design from Industrial Design Center, IIT Bombay. Dr. Kumar has a master's degree in Design or Visual Communications and a bachelor's degree in Architecture. He has worked as a senior designer and then as a design head in a monthly magazine, Intelligent Computing, CHIP. His areas of interest include visual communication, architecture, design research with special focus on Tamil typography. Dr. Kumar strongly believes in himself and certain fundamental principles: righteousness, equality, love, trust, cleanliness, and discipline. Dr. Sanjeev Kakoti is an associate professor at IIM Shillong, an editor of NUKSA, the Pine Chronicle, chairperson of CEDNR, Center of the Development of Northeastern Region, and the Incubation and Enterprise Support Center of the Institute. He has also been a guest faculty at IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Bangalore. He obtained his PhD on the theme of technology and social change from NEHU Shillong and also completed 3TP from IIM Ahmedabad. Apart from teaching and research, he's also a documentary filmmaker and a writer with 3 books to his credit. As a member of the World Business School Council for Sustainable Business, he was one of the authors of the Report of Management Education for the Future that was presented at the UN Earth Summit at Rio 2012. He was also appointed as International Consultant of Indian Media Markets to Hamburg Media School, Germany, and has guided a number of researchers by HMS students. His areas of interest, apart from culture and education, include sustainability, communication, and governance. Mr. Vikram Mitra is a senior faculty and discipline lead of Industrial Design, Institute Activity Chairperson at NID Jorhat. His interests lie in product design, design management, system design, and display and control. He has qualifications in industrial design and mechanical engineering, apart from business management. His experience includes working in design consultancies, professional entrepreneurship, and manufacturing industry. He also has extensive experience in design research, product design conceptual development, coordinating for prototyping and manufacturing for medical, laboratory, and industrial equipment. Finally, our moderator, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt. He's a professor and higher education management professional with 20 years of professional experience. His career has spanned various roles in institution building, teaching, and research. He has served at NID Ahmedabad, IIT Gandhinagar, ISDA Parsons, Mumbai. As Associate Dean at ISDA Parsons, Mumbai, he formulated and implemented an innovation-centric strategy that has resulted in several patents. Previously, as an assistant professor at NID Ahmedabad and IIT Gandhinagar, he has demonstrated success and expertise in launching new and managing legacy design education programs. His research interest lies in affordable medtech innovation and public health system design. With Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, he has led innovation projects on maternal and neonatal health with clinical testing in Kenya, Nepal, and India. A published and speaker at several international and domestic conferences and symposiums. He serves on the board of government organizations and incubators in healthcare innovation. He's an alumnus of He's an alumnus of Bangalore University and NID Ahmedabad. A very, very warm welcome to everybody, and I will now hand over the session to Bhaskar.
Absolutely. We frankly could have avoided my long introduction. It is an absolute honor to have these 3 gentlemen with us because they are the thought leaders from the Northeast. And when we decided to have this session on the Northeast. I couldn't think of anybody but these three people, because these are the most, illuminating institutions settled in the Northeast at the moment. So without further ado, I would like to begin this with a question. The Northeast poses specific challenges. It's a beautiful opportunity as well. One thing, when I was reading about the Northeast, I was struck by the fact that 96% of the borders of the Northeast are international borders. They're shared with Bangladesh, Burma, China, Bhutan, and Nepal. So it has also had a volatile past. And linguistically, the region is different. Geographically, it has certain challenges. Yet, it's an absolute treasure trove of culture, stories, and as I would like to say, every difficulty is an opportunity in disguise. So I would like to invite the first comment, probably from Dr. Uday Kumar, saying, how do you really see design leveraging over the existential challenges of the Northeast region?
Firstly, thank you, Ahmedabad Design Week organizers, for inviting me to this panel discussions. I'm really glad I'm here, and I'm also happy to meet all wonderful experts from other regions in the Northeast itself, though we have not physically met, but it's happy to meet them online. And also thank you, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt, Professor Bhaskar Bhatt, and also Sambit for the introduction and also anchoring this event. So thank you. So we maybe I would start off with a small introduction about our department, so that you get to know of our department, what we do, and then probably I will move on to the question. So we are Department of Design as a part of the IIT. So we are one of the departments in IIT Guwahati. So we have around 13 departments. We are a small department as compared to the other departments. And we have 3 programs running, which is Bachelor's in Design, Master's in Design, and PhD in Design. So we were one of the first to start off with the BDES in an IIT system, BDES program, and also to have the PhD in Design program in the IITs. So as we have all 3 programs, and our students do really well. And in fact, we have a very good record of placements for the past 10 years. And many of our research scholars are also associated with various design institutes across the country. So that is a very good and positive aspect of our department. And we also have a diverse faculty members who are from different regions and different expertise in design disciplines. So that is a brief about our department. So in terms of the challenges, there are quite a few challenges, and in fact, our department has been taking up a lot of consultancy and research projects in and around the Northeast regarding the opportunities that are lying there. So firstly, if you can take about the material itself. So Northeast is very well known for the bamboo and cane craft. So there are a lot of craft in the Northeast region. As you all know, the Northeast comprises of 7 states. There are different states, and each state has its own unique crafts, and they use the same, though they use the same bamboo and cane materials, but the way they kind of develop their own products, they're all kind of quite unique in itself. And not just the bamboo and cane, but they also are textile. They are really wonderful textiles in terms of their motifs and colors, from graphical point of view, from communication design point of view, and also from the textile design point of view. So as you all know, Muga is very well known, and it's particularly is one of the unique silk which is comes from Assam. And there are different localities which kind of have artisans and weavers who predominantly work in these materials. So one of the challenges is in these craft sectors is that sometimes it does not take out as in a very large scale. So they're all the artisans they have been trained to do what have they been doing on all these past years. So probably design can play a very important role in upscaling their market, and also to kind of innovate in terms of their own kinds of products that they develop. So earlier they simply work on the baskets, the regular things for the day-to-day life. Probably that could be kind of taken up further. In fact, I remember there were projects within our department which were taken in this lines, where we also train artisans from different states in the Northeast, help them to kind of come up with innovative weaving pattern, also innovative products, and also as you know, craft, every basket is different basket. Yeah? So there is no, unlike a mass produced products where you have consistency in terms of the product, quality and everything. But in craft, that is not there to speak. But in fact, that is also a beauty of the craft in itself, because each basket is unique. I'm just giving you an example. So I remember in our department, there were faculty members, Professor Ravi Mukashi Punekar and Dr. Avinash Shinde, who kind of worked on this. So they kind of developed molds, which kind of creates this uniformity in the basket weaving and also increases the efficiency of creating these baskets. So they created a mold in such a way that this could be dismantled and assembled together. So this kind of a little bit of an innovation, which kind of helps the viewer to speed up the production process in a day. So if you earlier, if they've been doing it by hand, so probably they might weave 3 to 4 baskets. But with these kind of assisted devices, which these kind of molds, it kind of doubles their production in a day. So these are some kind of design interventions which our department and department faculties have kind of worked on. So these are to kind of give you some idea of how design can play a role and leverage the opportunities which are there in the Northeast. So I can go on also talk about the handloom and also the handloom sector, yeah, where there's weaving the mills and the machines that are used for textiles. But I'll rest my points here. Probably I would request my other panel members to kind of please add on to it. Yeah. So,
Professor Kakuti, when I read your background and you have such beautiful talks on YouTube, you've spoken and written extensively about the subject of sustainable business. And also now that you're a faculty member at IIM Shillong, you also have a very unique vantage point, if I'm not mistaken, that you were born and raised in the Northeast. So you've actually seen the community from a very, very close range. So if we were to just expand the definition of design as artifact driven and we move to the larger gamut of innovation, how would your response be to the existential challenges of the Northeast?
Okay. I would probably take it back a little. I can't help it because I'm a historian and my area of specialization is the history of the region.
Oh, wonderful.
So what happens is actually it's not 96% of the borders, it's close to 99%.
99%.
It's just connected with a very, very narrow strip of land called, derisively called the Chicken's Neck. That's the Silicuri landmass. The rest, it's covered by foreign countries. Now, this very interesting about the Northeast. First thing that we need to understand is that it's a land of antiquity. It's a land of antiquity because it finds reference in the Mahabharata. It finds reference in the Puranas, the Kalika Purana, the Yogini Tantra. So it's a very, very ancient land, which is something that is often missed. And once you look at an ancient land, so the culture, heritage, and traditions of that region is going to be extremely. The second thing that needs to be kept in mind is the variety, the cultural variety that is there. We have close to 500 languages that is spoken in this region. Some of them are on the verge of extinction. There is one community called the Leash in Arunachal that just has about 120 people who speak a particular language. And so there is a lot that needs to be done to preserve the culture. So when you talk about culture, handcrafts are something that are an outgrowth of that culture. So you have handicrafts, handlooms, and you have got agricultural techniques, the tools that are used, which is extremely unique to the region. And they are very, very interesting. So the three things that needs to be kept in mind is the antiquity of the land, the variety, and people have actually survived very well in a land that has the last of the rainforest in Assam, the Jaipur rainforest. You have the snow-clad Himalayas in Arunachal and Sikkim. And so in terms of geography and climate and temperature, you have everything from hot, humid plains, floodplains to the snow-clad Himalayas. So as a documentary maker, as a writer, I have traveled extensively over the region. And so you find that the culture and tradition in each of the areas is unique, it's different. And what happens is when we are talking about, say, handicrafts, so in Arunachal or in parts of Assam, parts of Meghalaya, or you take it, you have it. You have bridges that are made with the local produced bamboo. And these bridges can actually take the weight of passenger buses and trucks, so well designed. And these are renewed every 2 years, and the people who make it actually charge a fee for vehicles to cross over. So those are the bridges. You have bridges in Meghalaya that are made out of roots of trees. They are called the living root bridges. So that's another very interesting thing. So those are the bridges. So you have the baskets, you have the tools, you have the techniques, you have iron smelting, you have got gold that used to be taken from the rivers and then smelted. So you have a complete clan of people who are known as the Sonaris, or Honari as they are known in Assamese. They were involved with that. So Northeast presents a very, very unique thing. And because it has been a land of antiquity, what also is interesting is that the cultural traditions of the place has actually gone on without a break for hundreds of years. Now that is sustainability, you see. So and the languages are still spoken. We can differentiate the different tribes based on the color schema in their shawls and in their clothes, the floral designs and things like that. So we have got different materials that are used. The silk of the region, it's endemic. The muga that Mr. Uday Kumar was talking about is also known as the golden fabric, which is produced only in the state of Assam. You have the Ahimsa one, the Ahimsa silk, also known as the Endi or the Eri. That is actually, the silkworms are not killed. So the silk is extracted, so it is known as the Ahimsa silk. One of the interesting parts of this, when the Chinese pilgrim Huan came to India, one of the places he spent a lot of time was in Assam, in the kingdom of Bhaskara Varman, who was a very, very renowned king at that time, who was a contemporary of Harshavardhan. And the Buddhist council was on. So Harsha actually wrote to Bhaskara saying that you are keeping the pilgrim for too long. I want him in my kingdom. So Bhaskara accompanied the pilgrim to go to Kannauj, to his kingdom. And before he left, he was given a few gifts. And one of the gifts was a parasol and an umbrella made of silk, exquisite silk. Now, after he went back to China, he actually wrote a book called the Suyuki, or Tales of the Eastern Lands. And this book actually throws light on some of the very, very ancient traditions of this region. The other thing, I hope I'm not taking too much time, it's such a fascinating subject. The Silk Route that ran from China to the Middle East actually ran through the Northeast, through Assam and through Manipur. And very, very exquisite Ming Dynasty pottery has been found on the route. There is a very, very old college in Guwahati called the Cotton College. So when they were digging for the auditorium of the college in Guwahati, they found a lot of artifacts and remains, and some of them point to the Silk Route connection. So that's something very interesting. The other very fascinating thing, which I can't help but say, when I was doing my PhD, we have always assumed that rice culture came into the region maybe from China. Now, I suddenly have this weird thought that maybe it went from the Brahmaputra Valley to China. The reason being, in the Brahmaputra Valley, there were more than 20,000 varieties of rice, 20,000 varieties of rice that was grown. I presented my findings in a seminar in Calcutta, and a younger scholar stood up and contested what I was saying, because he was doing research with much more technology in Europe. And he said, Dada, it is not 20,000, it is 30,000 varieties of rice. Now, the thing is, and he's done the mapping to the wild varieties, and he's found a lot. Unfortunately, at this point of time, we just have about 8 to 10 hybrid varieties that are cultivated. So in a place that could have 30,000 varieties of rice that was grown, it is very, very possible that rice culture was indigenous to the region. So the other thing was the culture of gunpowder. My research showed that one of the reasons that the Ahom king, which ruled Assam for more than 600 years, it's the longest that any kingdom has existed in India, 600 years and more. The Mughals was much less. We know of the Mughals, we don't know of the Ahoms. That's the tragedy of Indian history. So the Ahoms actually had the technology to make their own gunpowder. I've documented it in my book published by Cambridge, saying that this is the way the gunpowder was made. So culturally, you have masks, the tradition of making masks for every dance. You have costumes that are made. You have got the entire Mahabharata or the Ramayana that would be depicted through toys, through puppetry. You have hand arts that makes all kinds of animals with terracotta. You have got carvings. You have got bamboo and cane. Of course, you have it. You have the handloom. So it's an exquisitely rich area. Unfortunately, thanks to globalization and the influx of the consumer culture, there is the very, very strong possibility that unless people are made to be proud of what they have, in the next 50 years, I think all of this will be found only in books and museums. I think I need to stop here, otherwise the rest of the panel is going to get very angry with me.
No, not at all. I think it's moving along such interesting lines that I
Yes.
would probably request Sambit that we organize a special session where we get all of you
Yeah.
to actually lecture us on the history of the Northeast, because we could
Wonderful.
listen to this for the entire day. And
Yeah, of course.
it's phenomenal. I mean, thank you.
I guess that's a great suggestion. I'll put it forth and let's see what we can make out of it.
Absolutely. I think we should do a seminar on this. And,
Yeah.
as I was saying, as I was mentioning to everyone, I was saying one of the positive outcomes of the pandemic, unfortunately, he said, is that now we have the brightest of the minds available on a phone call away. So it will be very easy to get them back and learn more from them, actually. So I will now move the baton to Professor Mitra, because I know Professor Mitra. Professor Mitra was my senior in the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. So I have seen him work in the studios when I was there as his deputy. Now, 20 years back. But Professor Mitra is an industrial designer. So his main expertise lies in products. And that leads me to the next question, which we know that the Northeast as a region has not seen industrialization in a big way. We've had Professor Kakoti write about it, actually. One of his interviews with BBC talks about it, where he said that, one of the reasons as to why there is difficulty in geography, there's difficulty in terms of connectivity as well, in terms of Indian Railways. So transporting raw materials or clustering, if we may say so, of specific industry has never really happened in the Northeast. So now, given the fact, Vikram, that NID Jorhat has been established with an open slate, you have this beautiful white canvas in front of you to paint a picture as you would deem fit for the region. What is that vision that you're going to take forward?
Yeah, thank you, Bhaskar, for reminding us of our olden days. Of course, NID at Jorhat is still very new. We are still kind of infants, and we are just in the process of actually still setting up ourselves. Okay, I am also personally very new to this region, although I have come many a times until Calcutta, but probably this is the first time in my life I am like beyond Bangladesh, this side of the country. Nonetheless, we have been thinking about what we can do and how we can participate in the ecosystem. Definitely, NID has always had a very strong social mandate, and few initiatives we have been taking in the last year or year and a half until now. Not necessarily that we have formulated any vision or anything as yet for what and how we want to kind of contribute. However, for example, during the pandemic situation, we had an occasion to interact with the district commissioner here in Jorhat, and they were speaking about certain bamboo craftsmen who kind of have kind of lost out on business on account of the pandemic, and then also there was certain needs of the staff in of the department. Okay, so they wanted if we can build up certain face shields for them, and then we were able to successfully develop a bamboo strip based face shield with a little element of the gamusa, the gamusa fabric. And we were able to interact with a local self-help group, and they were able to kind of churn out a few of those quantities using some women self-help groups. These were typically for the Safai Karmacharis actually in Jorhat. So one little attempt we had, this was around in the month of May, June actually, this last year only. Beyond which, last year we had a small design week like thing, just like this, not as big as this Ahmedabad Design Week, but we had a small thing for our students where we were able to get one of our alumni from Nagaland, Margaret Zinyu. So she's working extensively with these loin looms, backstrap loin looms. So we were able to have a very interesting workshop where the students could develop simple ideas, including stoles and scarves and things like that, using the kind of reliving that tradition. Also, we had a craftsman from Majuli, the face mask, or what you can say. It's not a face mask. It's like a kind of a part of the theater culture. So we had students also indulging in that kind of a tradition. Beyond which, on the initiative of Professor Ravi Shankar, we now have set up a small lab. We are calling it the Sustainable Materials Lab. Actually, it's a big kind of name, but sort of a little bit of an initiative we have taken. We have also one of our faculty, Dr. Dipankar Borua. He's also a PhD from IIT Guwahati. So he's spearheading that initiative. We have developed some things. Again, bamboo, we are looking at it because already good amount of work has been done in bamboo nonetheless, but still we are trying to kind of tinker around it. Lastly, recently we have also touched base with KVIC, Khadi Village Industries Commission. So they have a project in Arunachal with Eri silk particularly. Yeah. So we'll have a couple of our textile faculty designers visiting them, one particular remote village ahead of Itanagar. They'll be in fact going next week. So let us see. We are trying to kind of still take some baby steps, but hopefully we can contribute in some way. Yeah.
Bhaskar, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's a very typical mistake I do. So I'm just saying that it's actually wonderful. You're taking baby steps, and I'm sure the coming decade will see NIT Jorhat also kind of spring forth and establish its own unique agenda, which will lead to development in the region. So something that Dr. Uday Kumar said, piqued my interest. And he talked about stories, which was again endorsed by Dr. Kakoti as well. So as a communications designer, Professor Udaya, we've always seen the Northeast as this absolute treasure trove of mythology and stories and scripts, right? What opportunities do you see, perhaps at a personal level?
Yeah, actually, it's I can say again from examples from our own students' projects, because there are people from various states and various tribes in the Northeast. So some of them were very much inspired from their own local tradition in terms of the folk tales and folklore. And so they've come up with graphic novels, yeah, based on their own folk tales and trying to project their stories. And so some of the stories are really fascinating, which is very unique to the Northeast. Yeah. And so it brings a lot of good, interesting lessons. Some of them are mythological stories. Some of them are real life stories also. So So I remember a lot of our students taking up such kind of a projects in trying to kind of make it into an communication design project and also project these stories to the outer world for people to kind of look at it and enjoy and read and also learn about the culture and various customs of these local people. That's one. And from communication design point of view, again, there are a lot of opportunities. So one is that in terms of branding itself. So I remember my own students trying to brand the Muga silk, though Muga silk is very well known, and Professor Sanjeev Bhai already mentioned it that it is only seen from Assam. So not though there are a lot of people who are who do work in this as a textile from textile point of view. For it to market it at a global level, it still requires some kind of a branding exercise. So we made an attempt to create a brand for the Muga silk. In fact, we were trying to kind of help out the government organizations to kind of see how this could be branded and projected at a national and international market, yeah, in a better way. So these are some of the opportunities which we could see. So when you are talking about communication design, and tourism is also another sector where Northeast is a very beautiful place. Each and every state is really wonderful. It's a must for every Indian to come and visit Northeast and see the beauty it is. I myself being from South India, from Chennai, so I've never been to this part of the country. So 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, when I came here first, I was mesmerized by the beauty, the natural scenic beauty that it had, especially the IIT campus. So then I felt like this is the place. You need to kind of spend your time at least for some time. So that's how I kind of came and joined the Guwahati campus. So so tourism is another big thing where communication design can play a very role in promoting the tourism of this entire Northeast. Again, like I said, each state is different, so it requires a different strategy to kind of work around that. Yeah, so I hope I was able to put it.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're still trying to, sitting in the diametrically opposite part of the country. We know about the scenic beauty, and we've heard people wax eloquently about the scenery and the culture of the place. But you are the people who are living there, and so you bring this personal insight, and so the words ring true, if I may say so. So thank you for sharing that idea. So moving on, Dr. Kakpati, I wanted to ask you about your efforts in the Center for Entrepreneurship at IIM Shillong, because I was reading the vision report, which was published very recently for the Northeast region, and it very clearly says that there are certain challenges, and due to the lack of heavy industrialization, local self-reliance is the way forward. So you're talking about Human Development Index, or you're talking about, let's say, Institutional Development Index or Skill Development Index, but essentially it kind of boils down to the fact that you need to be reliant as a region, and then you can handle the forces. And I also know, coming from a design background, from an industrial design background, I know that design is also very entrepreneurial in its own way. I mean, we might be working in regularized professions, but there's always this little entrepreneur, peeking at every given opportunity, saying, we need to be able to do something. So I'm going to try and ask you a question which lies at the confluence of design, micro-entrepreneurship, innovation, specifically contextualized to the Northeast. If you could answer that, please. What do you think are the potential?
Yeah, I think that's quite well put. One of the electives I had offered last year was called design thinking.
Yeah.
And actually, we try and think that design is only designing products.
Yeah, it's not.
But it's such a big field, design. So, and design thinking is something that the Northeast needs desperately. Now, what has happened? I mean, for a historian and for somebody interested in the development of the region, what I realize is that probably the development model that the rest of the world has had, the development model that the rest of India has had, may not be suitable for the Northeast. Because we have made mistakes in our development model, the Western one, where we have always thought of big is beautiful. And here we have the exact opposite, small is beautiful, thanks to Schumacher. And what happens is the lack of heavy investments could also be seen as a boon for the region, because this gives an opportunity to develop entrepreneurship at a community level. So one of the key strengths of the region continues to be the very, very strong community that exists or used to exist. It's slowly disintegrating for various reasons, but the community is still there. For instance, I was once in Manipur, and there's a place called Henglip, which is near Churachandpur. And this is a fascinating story. There was a road which required about maybe 8 hours of backbreaking journey by a four-wheel truck. That was the only means of communication, whereas a shorter route was entirely possible. And once, twice, three times, maybe they approached the government for a shorter route, it did not come. So the community decided to pool resources and build a road themselves. So they started an organization, and many of them were engineers working in different parts of the country. So they all bought a land mover, a bulldozer, as you may call it, and they actually bought it in Calcutta and tried to drive it all the way back to Manipur, which was a long haul. And they broke down; they couldn't do it, so they bought it from Assam. They brought it there, and the village people actually donated the land on which the road would be built, and they would just collect money for the diesel and for paying the driver. And to cut a long story short, that journey that used to take 8 hours by a Shaktiman truck, a four-wheel truck, is down to about 2 hours now on a road that is not yet pitched, but it is ready. So that is what the community can achieve. In the COVID situation, if you notice, you find that Northeast has a recovery rate close to 99%. The spread was very, very less, and this was essentially due to the community effort that went in. So the community method of doing business is something that we are trying to explore at IIM Shillong, and we are trying to mimic or study the Taobao model that the Chinese have used so successfully. So for the Taobao model, for people who might not have had exposure to it, is basically aggregation of products and services by one single entity. In this case, the Alibaba, they did that. So villagers would be wherever they are producing, whatever they're producing, some sort of standardization that Udaya was talking about, or was it, regarding molds and all that for baskets. So some sort of standardization was brought in, but people stayed wherever they were in their own homes, in their own villages, and they produced stuff. Maybe the raw materials was given by the aggregator, and the finished product was also picked up by them, and they were put up on a portal that could be sold, and it was sold worldwide. So that's the Taobao model in a very short way. So what we are trying to do is trying to recreate that kind of a model whereby the community produces whatever they're producing in the comfort of their homes. They don't need to come and crowd our cities and make slums. That is the wrong method of development. So very interestingly, this is exactly what Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who's to be a visiting professor in our college, spoke about with me personally. We used to exchange a lot of notes. He was such a humble man. He would sit next to you with his arms around you and he'd start talking. So he had this concept called the Pura, providing urban amenities in rural areas. So it's a complete model of development for India that he had propagated, and it's such a beautiful and a simple solution to a lot of our problems. So I had promised him that we will start the first Pura in the Northeast, and he'll come and inaugurate it. But it was not to be. We're still working on it. So what we need is to engage the community and come up with models where, because the other thing that is an area of concern for all of us is the skewed distribution of resources, because the incomes that are getting generated is going to the pockets of a very, very small minority, where the rest of the people are not getting the returns for all the hard work that they're doing. So using the community approach, maybe starting with Section 8 companies or not-for-profit companies, starting with farmer producer organizations or producer companies. These are the legal steps that the government has already provided in the Companies Act. All we need to do is actually come together and enable people to organize themselves, and actually the scale, the economies of scale that large industries are able to achieve can be achieved by smaller entities if they come together, and something like the Amul model.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no one single owner for Amul. Similarly, we can have similar models, say for bamboo, say for handicraft, say for food products, organic food, tea, you name it, you have it in the Northeast. So that is a possibility. And that's one area that we are trying to look at. We are trying to see, identify people, scout around, maybe develop young people who have the capability of scaling themselves or their things up. We are looking at tourism as a community activity. We are looking at development as a community activity, and I think that is a model that has a very, very strong chance of succeeding.
Wonderful. Very, very nicely put. Thank you so much. Sabit, I'm going to keep my eyes on the clock. Do we still have time? If I can, I would like to squeeze one last question to Professor Mitra, please.
Yes, we have 5 more minutes.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
9 on the clock. So, Professor Mitra, my question to you raises a couple of points that Dr. Uday mentioned and Professor Kakoti mentioned, right? Professor Uday spoke about how certain molds were standardized for baskets. And then, of course, Dr. Kakoti mentioned how the Taobao model talks about standardization so that the same kind of products and services could be available to a larger populace. My question to you, since you were a practicing industrial designer for many, many, many years before you moved into full-time education, would be, you know, the usual, pardon my choice of words, but the usual tropes that we have is that, you know, it's always about craft, right? Bamboo is always seen as craft, or for that matter, we fall back on this whole repertoire and bouquet of crafts that we have across the country as the mainstay of design. Undoubtedly, we should be proud of our heritage. But given the fact that there are developmental challenges in the Northeast, do you see opportunities beyond craft and beyond the whole aesthetics-based approach? Do you see any opportunities for frugal innovation? I personally don't like the word jugaad. I've never supported it. I understand that it was meant positively as a problem-solving method, but I think Indians are very good at finding opportunities to sneak through and cut corners. And so I'm not at all for scaling frugal innovation, but I will still use that word just so that everybody in our viewer audience could understand. So frugal innovation or jugaad, do you think that we could be looking at designs that improve the quality of life for the people in the Northeast?
Yes, definitely. So that is a very, very good question, Bhaskar. And it is something that we are really looking at because, of course, as you rightly put, no, we need to also look at the avenues beyond craft. Okay, and nonetheless, this indigenous innovations and there is a lot of scope, and it has a scope for social empowerment. It has a scope for entrepreneurship. It has scope in agriculture. It has scope in the tea industry. It's an amazing field. Probably we are also looking forward to, maybe in the future, not in the immediate short term, but maybe we could work out certain postgraduate programs if possible. Those are very region specific for the Northeast. Maybe in this kind of a social innovation sector, which may include all these kind of indigenous product development, we can say. Yeah, so definitely it is a great avenue. It is a great avenue for all of us to look at. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Sambit, any questions from the audience? I can keep asking these gentlemen more questions, but you'll have to.
I think the questions which were coming, a lot of them were answered in sequence somewhere or the other. So I do have a personal question though, if I may.
Please.
We have had a lot of, there's a cultural gap between pardon my use of the term, the mainland India and the Northeast India. So what we have what we all listen to right now from all our experts here is that these are all opportunities in order to kind of assimilate both the cultures. The challenge, I think, would be to retain identities, because globalization is an equalizer, and it is sometimes a ruthless equalizer. So what do we do in order, because the young generation, they look to the West a lot. Some of us do look inwards, but might be too late. So how do we make sure this assimilation is happening? It is bringing in all the goods which are associated with it, but the identities are not lost and retained.
I think I'll take that.
Yeah, please, I think you'll be the right person.
Right. So this is something that has been taxing our minds. I mean, what do we do? And one answer that we have found is that unless culture, identity, and heritage is tied to the economy somehow, they may not survive. So when Vikram was talking about crafts and all that, which could be used about industrial design and things like that, I was remembering a long conversation I had with representatives of Tata Steel, because they were trying to look at an alternative for steel, and because the tensile strength of bamboo is much more than steel. So was there a possibility of replacing steel with bamboo? Now, supposing bamboo were to come up as a viable alternative to steel, not entirely growing of bamboo would become very popular, and this would stop probably the exodus of the young who are going into very menial kind of jobs to the rest of the country as bartenders and as waiters and whatever. I'm not trying to belittle what they are doing, but it might be economically more viable for them to stay back home and get in touch with this. The other thing is, if you read the papers, you will find that because of our engagement in the for the armed forces at high altitude, there is need for specialized equipment, including clothes. Now, some of the silks that is found in to be used at high altitude, and this is being tried. Now, supposing, and this is a multi-billion-dollar kind of an industry. So, and there is a tradition which is there, and all we need to do is tweak the products as to what products can be produced out of, say, the Eri silk or the Pat or the Muga and stuff like that. In terms of Muga, I was very impressed with some of the presentations. I was in the jury made by PhD scholars from IIT Guwahati, where they had looked at Muga as an item that could be used for medicinal purposes in bandages and all that, and it worked very well for diabetic foot. So there is a possibility of actually commercializing some of the produce and products that are available. So once these can be made popular and these are kind of economically very viable for the young people, so the entire process of producing it, growing it, adding value to it, this is a part of the heritage that this region has. So this is the way we can preserve the heritage, not by saying that heritage needs to be preserved for the sake of preservation. No, it's going to be preserved because it makes good sense. It makes absolutely good economic sense to preserve it. I was in a meeting with a group from Taiwan. They had come up with more than 22 varieties of tea, and one tea variety. And they were saying that why can't the Northeast, why can't Assam grow those varieties of tea and market it internationally? So we are looking at the possibility of things like that. So tea is an industry that is supposed to be a sunset industry at the moment, is going through a huge amount of problems. So supposing innovations could be brought in into the tea industry, maybe that is one industry that is also again going to come up. We have issues of sustainability in packaging and stuff like that. Assam used to be a very large producer of jute, which has been used as a packaging. Now there's hardly any jute being produced, and with that, entire heritage and culture has disappeared or is on the verge of disappearing. Supposing we can bring in jute in a large scale, what happens is it becomes the revival of a heritage. So these are things that we are talking about, these are things that we are thinking about. But what happens is we need to create synergy. Now, you guys are, sitting in Gujarat at the moment, you're sitting in Ahmedabad, you're sitting in Bombay. What happens is you have got access to much more information, access to markets. And here we have got access to artisans, we have got access to produce and products. When the tsunami hit India, the state of Mizoram actually supplied a lot of prefabricated housing units. All you had to do is screw them on, just like the IKEA products, and your houses were ready. So we need so much of construction material which has to be there for short term, maybe during construction times or during the Kumbh Mela or things like that. So the Northeast can emerge as one of the major players producing this kind of things, but for that we need to work together. So that is the innovation that needs to come in. And by no means is it jugaad. It is actually innovation that brings about tangible change in the entire socio-economic scenario of the entire country.
Thank you so much, Professor Kakoti. I'm very sorry that we have run out of time because this is such a beautiful conversation. And for a lot of us, the Northeast is a little bit of, sometimes it's a foreign country because we do not know, we know what it is, but we do not know what it is at the same time. This is such a fascinating insight. So I'm, on behalf of ADW and on behalf of Karnavati University, I'm extremely honored and privileged to thank all of you for bringing your wisdom, bringing your knowledge, bringing the rich heritage of our Northeastern brethren to us. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Bhaskar. Thank you, Dr. Kakoti, Dr. Uday Kumar. Thank you, Professor Mitra. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to extend a word of thanks to all the gentlemen here. Thank you, Samrit. You held everything together wonderfully well. And to all the distinguished professors over here, it's been absolutely fascinating. And I shall actually invite myself as soon as the pandemic is over to fly to the Northeast and hope to meet each of you in person. And so I get to experience the beauty of your campuses.
Let me know when you plan that. Let me know when you plan that. We probably can travel together.
Lovely. Welcome to the Northeast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.